You are watching the Deadfoot Diver Podcast with Kurt, the Deadfoot Diver.
Thank you so much for having me. And you and I were talking prior to this about special needs divers with disabilities, and there's not really that much on the way of podcast. The podcast media addresses their diving, and I think what you're doing is great. If I look at the heart of diving, it's about challenge. And it doesn't matter whether you dive in a shipwreck or a cave or anything. If you're not just swimming around, if you really are trying to excel as a diver, it's about challenge. And of course, with adaptive divers, special needs, they have to overcome their challenges of whatever their special needs are. So really, diving is a very natural thing, I think, for special needs divers. It's what diving is really all about.
You're an instructor. In your time during an instructor, what types of benefits have you seen people get from disabled diving when they've been disabled?
I'll give you a good example. When I first went to commercial dive school in 1982, they told me I was too old.
How old were you?
I was like 20. Like, oh, you're way too old for this. But I'm like, I'm too old. So I was like, you know what? I enjoyed proving them wrong. And the same way I didn't like somebody telling me, not that I wasn't trying hard enough or I needed to lose 5 pounds or how old I was. There was nothing I could do about that. I was pretty much, that was it. That's how old I was. So I think for special needs divers, they probably get told a lot. Oh, you can't do this, or you can't do that. And it's in diving, I think adaptive divers can take it as far as they want. There are special needs divers who are doing technical dives and doing deeper dives, more challenging dives. They're certainly in the wreck environment. They're in the cave environment. And I'm going to suppose that they like that, accepting that challenge and proving their critics wrong.
So when you've had, what type of things do you see that when you've got an adaptive diver that they've had to adjust to on their gear and stuff like that? Because every single diver that's adaptive is going to have a different setup completely.
Yeah. And I can't make any broad generalization beyond, you have to look at each individual diver. There's a huge difference between a diver who's lost his left arm and a diver who's lost his right arm. Just as naturally, the responsibilities of the wing on the left-hand shoulder. Okay, now you've got to cross over, but okay, how do you maintain wherever, if you're on an anchor line in a current, then you have to, how do you adjust your buoyancy where you can't anchor yourself with one arm and bent the wing with the other? Every single case you have to look at. And if you've got one special needs instructor working with a diver, he might come up with solutions that are completely, totally different from what another instructor might come up with. Or the diver may learn to do things one way, but as time evolves and he gets more and more dive time, and he's, oh, you know what, I do it a little bit different. And this seems to work a lot better. But that's part of the enjoyment of diving is that it has a creative. Every dive is like a work of art. First of all, every dive. This is for my wreck diving career. Every dive's a training dive. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to try out, learn what's working, what's not working, what works better. There's no real excuse for you to not be able to make the most of any dive. When my girlfriend was learning to dive, she was like, "Oh, I'm doing this shallow water dive. I'm sure you wouldn't want to go." Blah, blah, blah. I was like, "No, I'll go." And she said, "What are you going to do?" I said, I will make the most. It's an opportunity to train. It's an opportunity to try this, that, the other thing. There's no reason in the world why you can't find something that you can work on, a skill you can hone, something that you say, I really wouldn't want to try this in 300 feet of water. Let me see if it works in 33 feet of water. The only thing in common with all the adaptive divers that I've worked with is they're all unique. They're all different, and they have different motivations. There's different goals that they have, and it's what they want to do, and trying to figure out how the best way for them to make that happen. There was a guy by the name of Matt Johnson who had Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. And he was like, I want to be a scuba diver. I want to dive in the ocean. And he's literally on a ventilator. Wow. And he just, and living in Minnesota. So it took him years of effort. Number one, he also had to finance everything.
It's not a cheap sport.
No, it's not a cheap sport. But the thing is, his support requirements were huge. And then it's okay. How do you make all of this happen? He's a guy with a tracheotomy. He's on a ventilator. So it's now, how do you translate all of that? And along the way, there's all kinds of mistakes. It's okay. We got it. If you're going to put him in a suit, you can't put him in a wetsuit because he's got a trach tube. You might be able to do it that way, but how do you do it that way? You can't just take him as he is and throw him in the water. So they put him in a dry suit, and then it's the dry suit. What they made custom ports for they made a single port in the suit to connect to his breathing tube. But the thing is, then they found that they by having a single connection for the in and out, they ended up adding anatomical dead space. So he has the sensation of being suffocated because he's getting so much, he's rebreathing such a much larger volume of gas. So it was genuinely groundbreaking. Every single aspect of it, you had to look at it, you had to troubleshoot it, and you had to make it work. And it took years, and my role was very small. He got a lot of different support team members, and by the time we got him down to the Florida Keys, he's in the water with turtles and sharks and all that, with his ventilator topside, delivering gas to him at depth.
That's amazing, just to be able to do that and the amount of stuff involved just to have one person in the water.
But the thing is, sometimes if you take a kid, a child, and the child makes some kind of adult accomplishment. The youngest person to ever dive Titanic. That's great. But typically speaking, they're being carried by a parent. Their support is really a cradle of support. In Matt's case, he really had to make everything happen. He had to find the people, get the gear, raise the money. His goal of diving was really much, much more of him overcoming challenge after challenge. And that's what diving is about. For his, relatively speaking, shallow dives, he was more of a diver than the average guy.
Which is incredible.
Yeah, no, and so that's what I say when I say that's the heart of diving. The heart of diving is I want to excel. And along the way, there's going to be a bunch of challenges. I got to have the right education. I got to have the right equipment. I got to have the right experience. I got to bring all this stuff together. And for the more involved challenges, you're not going to do it in a day. You're not going to do it in a week. You're working at it over years. And I've been diving shipwrecks for decades. And I still get in the water every single dive. And I'm enjoying it. I've got things to do. I am very much mission driven, whether I'm working with students or I'm trying to develop my own skills and redesign equipment, or it doesn't matter. I get in the water, I got a mission. And I think that if I can still have some kind of mission every time I get in the water, why can't everybody else?
Yeah.
Exactly. I was the guy who was too old for commercial diving.
Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe, and share. And also you can donate to me directly at buymeacoffee.com/deadfootdiver. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks a lot.